I'm Joanne Smith, occupational and certified hand therapist. I'm going to teach you how to make a negative mold, which will then be used to fabricate your leather brace. In the video that you're about to watch, you will see that I'm using this gypsona, the BSN, and you can use a different type, but this is the one that I've typically used. And the way I've made the pieces is to just take the length that I need, fold it over, and fold it again. So basically, when you see that I am applying one piece of gypsona, it's actually 3 pieces that have been dipped in the water and molded onto the person's hand. The first step is to soak up the arm, and if you have a hairy male, you need more soap and even potentially Vaseline than someone who is not very hairy. So here we've got the soaked up. You also don't want too much, because I would probably actually get rid of a little bit of this just with a Kleenex. All right, rest your arm down. Get him put into the position which is neutral, thumb opposed just lightly to the index finger, because you just want a little bit of wrist extension for the functional position of the brace that we're going to make. We're going to start with a bowl of room temperature water that has a piece of paper towel in the bottom, which makes it easier for cleanup. Then we've got these pieces of gypsona cut to size, and this is the kind of gypsona that we'll use, and you'll get the information separately. The pieces have been cut. This is for the thumb hole, which is basically over here. So this piece will go on this side, this one on that side. These are the 2 thumb pieces for front and back. So I'm going to start with the one with the thumb hole. 3 pieces. I pop them in the water and then I squeeze it out. Just squeeze out all the extra water. And I find my little space that I cut out and I pop it over the thumb, and your patient can just open the space, but he needs to keep his wrist a little bit back and just lightly positioned like that. We smooth out the plaster. You want his forearm in neutral. And then on this side, we're going to be making the seam. So you just fold over a little bit over there. We've got a fair amount of working time. Then this will be for the seam up at the thumb. And then the end piece, you want just to go a little bit up the fingers. Now you want to remind him that you want his position just lightly opposing to the index finger, wrist a little bit back, and then you smooth out any creases that there are. So his hand is well positioned now, and you've got that working time to teach him how you really want it. When you're a beginner, it's helpful to let this piece dry before going on to the next piece, because then you have something that's fairly stable that the person then won't move around. I'm going to go straight onto the back piece, so I'm hoping my patient won't be moving. And here I've waited, I'm squeezing out again. I put on the back, keeping the one seam. We only keep a seam on one side. I just smooth it out, overlapping on this little finger border of the arm. And here I am folding back again. If you have extra, you can fold back the top and bottom, which just gives a little bit of extra strength, but I don't always do that. It's not essential. You can relax your fingers. So again, I'm just making sure that everything is smooth. I've got the seam on this side, Now, if the forearm is very large, you will get a space over here. So then what I do is I just take a scrap piece and then I fill it in. And in fact, the cast is longer than it needs to be. If you take the cast up to about 2/3 up the arm, that is adequate. And if you're making a short thumb splint, then in fact, you only need a very short forearm piece. So I'm going on to the thumb piece now. I'm popping it in the water, squeezing out. And I usually start on the back. So I go over the back of the thumb, go back into position. Back of the thumb. I'm creating a space for a seam on each side. And I try and keep this clear, because remember we've got a seam over here. So when we take the cast off, we want to be able to open the whole piece up. The plaster is pretty forgiving. And then one on the other side. And this one, I sometimes actually go sideways because I find it's easier, there's more coverage than if I go this way. So I'll sometimes just go in here at the thumb. And we just need to fill in. Again, little bits that are left open, we can fill in with additional pieces. A little piece there that I want to fill in. So we've got the seam there that's going to open. Here's the seam on the other side that's going to open. And it's looking good. We're happy with his mid position. And I'll just show you how, if we wanted to fill in, that we just take another small piece. Don't have to be too elegant about it. I'm even going to fold this one over and just fill in the gap. So that's easy to do. Nobody's going to know the end point whether it's been beautifully done, as long as the end result is what we need. So this in fact has turned out okay, but if there was a significant gap, a tiny little gap, doesn't matter, I would fill in a little piece. There's a little gap over here, which I might just take a little piece over here. I'm going to fold it in 3, because the 3 is a nice secure thickness. And I'll just fill in this little corner. And we just give it a few minutes to harden. It doesn't take long at all. So I can feel the cast is now hard, so I'm going to start releasing it. I can ask the patient to just wiggle their thumb a little bit, which will release it. I will also take the bottom and just gradually ease it out, and I'll just tell them you can move your hand out. Thank you. And then I'll tell the patient he can go and get washed up. And then, thank you patient. And then what I do over here, so I've got this and it looks good. There's no bumps, everything seems to be as it should be. So I take this piece, which is it's basically 2 pieces, a piece that I folded in half, and that's going to cover that seam, just so that we can close it in. So that's that. And I just make sure that everything's lined up. Now, some people actually mark across so they know they've got the right point. I find that it's generally pretty obvious where the pieces go. And so I just smooth down along the seam. If I've got enough for over the top, that's great. If not, we'll use a different piece. So you only need 2 pieces for these fold-in joints, but the other pieces, front and back, will actually be 3 pieces. So again, we make sure that everything's closed in, because we know the pieces were right next to one another. So I take this piece, which again is a piece that's folded over, Squeeze out the water, place it over the top to close in that. And then I'm just left with one little area that I still need to close in. So I happen to have another piece, and whether it's two layers or 3 layers, it really doesn't matter. Two layers would be enough, but I happen to have that one. So it's fine, and then I just pop it in the area to close it in. And there is our negative mold. As soon as it's dry, you can stuff it with either newspaper or bubble wrap and pop it safely in a box, cover it all round with your newspaper or bubble wrap, so it's really secure, because this is going to get sent to me.